all, they have to be within driving distance of our society in order to bring them in. And the pandemic sort of rejuvenated our programming because we were able to bring in people from all over the world. We just had a speaker from London on Saturday, and obviously this is not something that we can continue to do when we open up in person. So we're really struggling with how are we going to continue this kind of rich programming where, we had pretty much exhausted the pool of local speakers, and we were going outside, 200 miles away, which is, we can't really afford to put them up in a hotel unless we have to, but that becomes a financial burden. So we're struggling with how are we going to continue this. So I would love to know anyone else's thoughts on if you've experienced anything similar with your society, or what are your plans going forward with hybrid meetings, or how are you going to keep this going?
Well, one of the things that I've seen in the Dallas area is organizations teaming up with other organizations to fund bringing in other speakers, and bringing in other speakers, whether it was virtually or bringing them in and paying their travel expenses, but pooling their sources together. I've seen that as an option. I'm not sure which groups you were in today, but in one of the groups we talked about other organizations now having a balance between, the hybrid balance of virtual and in-person, and they're going to do 3 virtual and then 1 in-person event. So I think, that's going to be able to open up your pool to more speakers in that way. Those are just some of the options that I've seen within the last year or so.
Yeah, we're looking at opening up. California's been very restrictive, so we're just looking at opening up in September for our first in-person meeting in a year and a half. So getting ready for that.
Well, in Oregon, so my member organization is the Genealogical Forum of Oregon. We're about an 1,100 member organization, and we're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year.
Wow.
But so for us, we have been very lucky during the pandemic. We have an annual free open house that's a week long, and this year had 18 different classes. And we had an average attendance of 121 people per class, which is unheard of for us. And our physical location could not tolerate that number of people. And so we're struggling with, we've been successful, and how do we continue that success with our physical limitations? And because we've gotten such good feedback from everyone of the virtual nature of the classes. So that's one of the things that it's a positive and a negative.
Hi, I'm Kirk Hare. I'm Vice President for the Broomfield Genealogy Society, and I'm new at it this year. I was elected in November. Anyway, we've been doing virtual meetings this past year, and we're getting ready to transition once we can start meeting again. And Colorado is starting to open up a little bit, so probably by fall we will be meeting. But we're talking about continuing to have a hybrid approach where probably 6 of our meetings each year will be in person, and the remaining 4, because we only meet 10 times out of the year, the remaining 4 will be virtual. Part of the problems we've been having before the pandemic was that the library had been going through numerous changes in staff and stuff, and has impacted our organization where we were meeting. First, they started requiring us to be a 50 or a nonprofit, so we did that to conform with them. And then they said, oh, you can only now reserve 6, reserve the room for 6 sessions. So it's become a real problem. But by going to a hybrid model, we'll be able to, still be able to meet at least 6 times there, and then the remaining will be virtual. So, and also we're thinking maybe some of the virtual or the non meetings at the library might be more of a social, like a picnic or something like that, as a way to have more of a hybrid organization.
Yes, Doug?
Hi, I'm Doug Whisker. I'm Vice President of North San Diego County Genealogical Society. And I'll echo what Elizabeth said, and that is that we've been able to bring in a wider range of speakers, and speakers that normally we wouldn't be able to have because of the distance they would have to travel. So what we have done is we have surveyed our membership. We have about 300 members, and as of our May board meeting, we have heard back from roughly half. So I'm thinking we're going to probably get maybe 75% response, and that'll give us a better indication of how our members felt about the virtual programming and what they would like us to do going forward. So I think that we're probably going to end up with some hybrid presentations, but it's going to be based upon our membership's responses.
So I'm just curious, when you surveyed your organization, did you survey them more about the virtual aspect of it or the speakers and the subjects that they would like to hear?
More about the virtual aspect. Did you attend presentations virtually that you would not have attended in person? If we continue with virtual presentations, would you like to see a hybrid model, etc.? And the other thing that our society does is that we record all of our presentations, whether they were virtual or in person, so that if you're a member, our presentations are open to everyone. But if you're a member, you have access to the videos. So if you missed a presentation, you could go into our website and view that presentation as a video.
I'm always curious as a speaker, when I come to a society, if they were just, I'm looking for, I'm grabbing at speakers, or if this was more of, you're speaking on a subject that I'm really interested in. You know, I can tell sometimes, especially with our local societies, we need somebody for August. And so it's like, I'll be glad to do it. But I wonder how many times there are people sitting in the audience that, let's just say, Native American genealogy or something that's not normally covered on a regular basis. And they were like, I'd really love to see this. And we're not really focusing like on what they would like to see.
That's exactly how it was planning before the pandemic. It was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get somebody for June. Who haven't we had in the past year who's within driving distance and has something we haven't heard? And
Right.
you know, we had this circuit of people that we could call on, and it just got so repetitive and redundant. And now it's like people email me and say, you know, I'd really like to hear about such and such. Somebody said, we really want to know what to do with our genealogy after we pass on. Well, okay, I know just the person for that, but she's on the East Coast.
Right.
So I can now cater more to when people are saying, I really want to know about this. All right, I know who just to get for that. And you know, with our little pool of local people, it's like, well, okay, let me see what I can find. But I mean, I don't want to lose that. I want people to be able to say, I really want to learn about this. And
Right.
I can get them an expert versus whoever's within 100 miles and is willing to drive to us that day. So that's a
And-
really good point.
we've had so many opportunities now, like just with me being at the library, but knowing other librarians in our DFW area that they call me and they're like, we need somebody new. And I was like, oh, there's a perfect railroad presentation, but this woman is in Arizona. And it was one that every time I was at a conference, there was some time conflict where I couldn't see her speak. So this was the perfect opportunity to hear her speak. And it makes the variety and the breadth of topics that are covered
Yes.
within the society so fresh and so new that I don't want to lose that momentum. You know, I personally feel like I was on that circuit of those local ones. And so it's like I was visiting at least once a year, if not twice a year. And even though I was giving them new information, I just felt like, I'm sure you're tired of seeing me. So yes, I would definitely love to be able to keep up this momentum. And even as a person sitting in the audience, now I've had the opportunity to go to other societies like in Chicago and all of these other places that I have researched that yes, in Kentucky and like all of these places that I have researched that I've never had the opportunity to have the time to sit in on one of their meetings. And, you know, quite honestly, it's made me make a list of who I want to maintain memberships with. And now I'm like, okay, well, now I need to give Chicago like some money for membership and this and like all of these other memberships because I'm more active, because now I can be more active in society in that way.
Well, what are the things that we've noticed is that there seems to be a national competition. You know, we're all remote, we're all virtual, we're offering a lot of we're competing with each other more than we ever have, because I can, you know, watch somebody at Seattle Genealogical Association virtually that maybe I couldn't drive up to before.
Right.
So it's interesting. It's actually making it a little bit harder to make money on those presentations. And a couple of times a year, we have seminars that we bring in noted speakers for the purpose of generating income.
Right.
And now that there's so much available to everybody everywhere, you know, it's a little, you have to be really thoughtful and make sure that that person isn't kind of playing everywhere right at the moment.
Right.
So
yes.
So again, it's been very good because we've been able to have wonderful people that we couldn't probably pay to come out otherwise, but there are also other places too. So we have to make sure that there's enough of demand to cover their fees.
Right. I think one of the advantages though of having a seminar speaker is that you get their undivided attention for a whole day worth of a specialty topic versus a 45-minute lecture, you know? And, you know, even when you're able to see a speaker free, let's just say in Seattle or wherever, most of the time, unless you're a member, you're not going to be able to see that recording. So if you're not available at 2 o'clock that day, then you miss out. And so there's still a lot of really great benefits to having seminar speakers. I agree that sometimes they can be oversaturated, but there's still a lot of really great advantages to it. Kendra?
Have sort of the other problem. I work for the Randolph County Public Library. I am the genealogist. I'm all by myself. I have zero money to spend. So all of the programming is me making all of the programming and me presenting all of the programming. And so I was sort of hoping somebody could help me with what makes a good program? What do you think would be interesting? I mean, what part of the program is interesting other than my, you know, PowerPoint slides? And right now I'm doing it on YouTube and Facebook, and at some point they will be in person, I imagine, again. But I just don't know what makes it.
Well, I have two options right now. I feel like me being at Dallas Public Library, a lot of it, the programming does fall on me. And I do some very basic programming so that I meet the needs of more of our demographic than a smaller part of the demographic. Because we've done more virtual programming this year than ever. I have been able to do very much more specific things for our programming, but I also have kind of made deals with other libraries that, hey, I'll do one for you if you do one for me, and switch it off there where it's free and it's one versus another one, kind of thing. So if you've got, networking experience with other librarians across the country, or people that are willing to make that trade with you, I would look into that. A lot of the times, as far as meeting the demand of your patrons, I would just look at, what are their main questions and concerns when they're coming to the reference desk, and kind of walking them through certain things. Like the basic presentations that I do for Ancestry and Family Search are, people that think they know those websites really well, but when you're like, what's the difference between the phonetic and the Soundex search, and you can't enunciate what really, there's a difference, but you can't really tell somebody the difference, walking them through those, or walking through the differences between doing a regular search on Family Search versus searching in the catalog, and all those new images that have come up. And so finding some of those trends like that and talking about those trends can be helpful to your patrons. Talking about things that are of interest to you can help out a lot, those are my suggestions. I mean, maybe, I think earlier today in one of the other groups, someone, and I wasn't in this group, but when they reported back, they were talking about how to foster baby speakers. And maybe that's a chance for somebody to get their experience and get their foot in the door, is to be like, hey, I just want you to do a 15-minute presentation on researching World War II veterans or World War I veterans. Or even for you, if you said, I have a patron that is looking for a World War I or a Civil War veteran, where do I start? Do I start at Full 3? Do I start at the Civil War Soldiers and Sailors database? Where do I start to look for this person? And make some hypothetical situations, Personally, I don't like to work live on the internet, because without a doubt, something's always going to happen. So I do screenshots, but coming up with those hypothetical situations of what people are already coming in and asking you for. I don't know if you are doing a lot of reference requests through email, but what are the kinds of things that people are looking for during that time? Or if they're pulling stuff from the Family Search Family History affiliate, and you're helping them with those things and making sure that people know that that service is available. So that could be some options. I'm currently working right now on an institute, and I'm putting together a presentation for developing a research plan. And so it's kind of like almost not sideways, but it's a backways way to how to approach the reference desk and how to come to the library prepared with a good reference question and spend your time wisely. And so, I mean, it helps you out as a librarian, but then it helps them out also. I feel like Ferris Bueller. Anyone? Anyone?
I'll jump in. So I'm Jody Ressler. I'm the Vice President of Administration for the Kentucky Genealogical Society. And I highly recommend this one librarian from Dallas. She's amazing.
Does her name start with an A?
It might. It's right on the tip of my tongue. She was actually booked to come to us this last year, but you know, when the world shut down, we had her come virtually, which worked out, I think, for most people. Bummer that we've moved from our normal setup is a second Saturday program where normally the speaker would do 2 sessions at our state historical library. So we were trying to transition from that. We were having some issues with that venue anyhow. So the pandemic kind of helped a little bit with that. Plus it kind of kicked our butt into, you know, doing new things and accessing more of our membership. Kentucky, if you're not familiar with it, our capital is actually a fairly small town in the grand scheme of things. It's not highly accessible. So we didn't pull in a whole lot of people on a regular Saturday. I mean, we would usually get between, you know, I'd say on a normal one, somewhere between 30 and 80 people kind of regularly, certainly more if it was a really popular subject or popular speaker. But, you know, we did one big seminar every year. And that would usually be a full day kind of event. So obviously the pandemic threw all of that out the window. So now we do basically a 1-hour webinar each month. The nice thing is we have gotten a whole lot more speakers and different opportunities. The seminar, this last year, we altered it to a month of webinars. I think we had 8 different speakers and all of them kind of revolved around a common subject, but they were at different times during that month. So it was accessible to a lot of people. So that was kind of interesting. How we'll transition back, I have no idea. So, and again, we've got the issue of our location because we don't have a brick and mortar. That's a big transition for us when we do go back to in-person, or at least in a hybrid way. We were trying to solve that problem anyhow. So now we're going to be really starting all over fresh and new. So it's definitely kicked our butt in that. But I mean, it's come with good things and bad things. But I think overall it's been really positive for us. We've gotten a lot of really cool speakers and different things that we might not have had in person just for accessibility.
So this is Matt from California, and you know, my question is, and I don't think anyone really knows the answer yet, is what is the market going to be for in-person programming next year or at some point in the future, right? We've all gotten used to, you know, getting tons of genealogical education from the comfort of our lounge chair or desk chair. And, you know, as a society putting together programs, you know, how are we going to differentiate and make the in-person programming, you know, relevant enough to get people out of their home and, you know, drive, whether it's a few miles or farther, to come to participate in the in-person experience?
Good question.
I think that goes back to the original question with the survey and really what your members want. But you know, there's so many members that really just want that fellowship more than even the speaker. So you're going to get those people, but maybe you offer hands-on activities at the same time. That's an added benefit of meeting in person. I guess, you know, it's going to depend on what your membership is like. You know, we have one special interest group here in Dallas that they're all about getting together and sharing old stories, but they're not about the methodology of research. And I have to totally accept that they're not interested, that they're doing it the wrong way. And I have to let them do what they want to do because that's what they enjoy doing. But it's more about the fellowship and the meeting up and telling old stories, you know? And so I think you have to gauge what kind of group you have.
Know your audience.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, Matt, one group that I used to be associated with in Illinois, with their conference, they started adding an ask the expert type thing where they tried different ways of it, whether people submitted questions ahead of time and you had pre-assigned people from your organization who, you know, maybe it was an expert in Irish or African American or, you know, Norwegian or something. And then people would sign up in, 15 or 20-minute time slots to sit with that person and work on a specific question or problem or guidance, offering something different and new to get the people to come in person. That's a thought.
Yeah.
We had a speaker once that, we always booked months ahead. And so what we did, she was going to offer to pick like 6 people who had a question about specifically Swedish ancestors and submit it to her a month and a half ahead. And then when she came to the meeting, she discussed what she found about their Swedish ancestors, and it drew a huge crowd, even the people that had no Swedish backgrounds.
That's
because,
really cool.
It was like this really specific, here's how you find these answers. And people were like, yes, asking questions. And would this work for German research? And
yes,
what about Italian? So that was nice.
Which again brings that hands-on approach, that kind of workshop-y approach. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording just so that it doesn't not give me the option in a minute.